Mrs. Baker's class. I'm Mrs. Frisby, and I'd like to share a book with you today. The book is called The Secret of NIMH, and it is written by Robert C. O'Brien. It is a fiction fantasy book about me, and it is for students who are in 3rd grade through 5th grade, depending on if you are reading it by yourself or if you're reading it with your reading group. And like I said, it's about me. I am the main character of The Secret of NIMH. I am a mom. I live in Mr. Fitzgibbon's garden. He is a farmer, and every spring he plows his garden and his fields, and my house where I live is in the way of the plow. So when he comes and plows in the spring, my house will be crushed. Normally we go and we live in our summer home, but this year my son Timothy has gotten very, very sick. He has pneumonia, and Mr. Ages, the mouse, has told me that I am supposed to give him medicine and that we are not supposed to move Timothy for a long time until he gets better, because he's very, very sick, and the cold air will only make him more sick and he could die. So we have a really big problem on our hands. Moving day is just a few days away. Mr. Fitzgibbon is going to plow his garden, and Timothy's too sick to go. So we need to figure out, how are we going to save Timothy? I have a lot of friends in this book who help me along the way, and even though I'm a very, very anxious mouse, I get frightened very easily. I will do anything at all to help my friends and my family as well. So my friends help me out a lot in this book, and I help my friends out as well. And my friend Jeremy, who's a crow, takes me to go see an owl. And I will read you the part about the owl. So we're going to start with, I am in the owl's home. It's a big, big tree, and I've flown on Jeremy's back to the owl's home, and I've come to ask the owl for help because he is the wisest creature in the whole forest, and I'm hoping that maybe he has an idea of how we can save Timothy. So let's see what he has to say. Lying where it does, your house will inevitably be turned up by the plow and probably broken into bits in the process. There is no feasible way to prevent this. The only advice I have for you is if you stay in the house, you will surely be crushed and killed. All of you. Therefore, it is better to take your chances with moving. Wrap your son Timothy up as warmly as you can, help him as much as possible on the journey, and hope for warm weather on moving day. That way, you are at least to be sure to save yourself and the other children. The owl paused and turned away from her, and then he looked at the entrance of his hollow. The patch of light it admitted was growing steadily dimmer. And now, if you will excuse me, the night is falling, and I have no more time to spare. I regret that I cannot give you a more satisfactory solution to your problem. Good evening, Mrs. He paused. I don't believe you told me your name. Mrs. Frisby. The poor mouse spoke with a sob in her throat, for the owl had said exactly what she feared he would say, and she had no real hope for Timothy. The owl had said, in effect, either Timothy must die alone, or they must all die together. Even if moving day should be extraordinarily warm, the nights were sure to be frosty, and that would be the end of him. Still, one must be polite, and she added sadly, I thank you, sir, for listening to me. But the mention of her name, an extraordinary change came over the owl. He turned back to her face again and stared at her most intently. Indeed, he even gave her an agitated flutter of his wings and half flew, half hopped closer to her, bending forward until his great sharp beak was only a few inches from her face. Mrs. Frisby shrank back in fear. What had she done wrong? "Did you say Mrs. Frisby?" "Yes, you asked my name." "Related to Jonathan Frisby?" "Yes, he was my husband. He died last summer. He was Timothy's father. But how do you know about him?" "That's not important," the owl said, drawing back a little and looking at her in a new way, almost as if with difference. "I will say this, his name was not unknown in these woods, and if you are his widow, that puts matters in a different light. Something new is in the way he said this caused Mrs. Frisby's hopes to lift a little. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I mean, madam, that there is a way that your son's life might just possibly be saved. I did not mention it to you because I saw no way you could conceivably do it, and I did not want to arouse false hope. But if you are indeed Jonathan Frisby's widow, then perhaps it can be done." "I don't understand at all," said Mrs. Frisby. What is this thing?" "It's not a thing that you can do yourself. You must go to the rats." "To the rats? But I don't know any rats. They have nothing to do with me." "I don't doubt that. They have little to do with anyone except themselves, and will have less as time goes on. Nonetheless, I think that they will help you if they can." "What will they do?" "They must move your house and place it where it will be safe from the plow." Now Mrs. Frisby's spirits fell again, and she said almost bitterly, "You are joking, sir. You are not serious. No rat could move my house. It's far too heavy and much too big." "The rats on Mr. Fitzgibbon's farm have things and ways you know nothing about. They are not like the rest of us. They are not, I think, even like other rats. They work at night in secret." So the rats are some of the other supporting characters in this story. The leader of the rats, his name is Nicodemus. And after I leave the owl's home, I need to go and talk to the rats and see if possibly they can move my home, this giant cinder block that's buried in the garden, and see if maybe they can move it and help me to save Timothy. So I really, really hope that you decide to read my book. I think it's a very special book. I read my book and I loved it. I thought it was a great representation of my story, and I really, really hope that you read it, and I really hope that you like reading it as well. Bye!